The ordinariness of what every single person on earth goes through is, in an ironic way, what unites us. Don't you think?
Welcome everyone to Humanity 2.0. Today's guest has several books on metaphysics that she has authored, which they're available on Amazon. She also has experience in the business world and a 20-year career in the Navy. Thank you for your service, by the way, Tina. You come to us with a huge passion for what you do in your work with Ghost and with humanity. And it's such a pleasure to have you here and discuss humanity through your eyes. So welcome, Tina Erwin. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Vanessa. Thank you so much for having me.
I always like to start off the show by asking the guest a particular set of questions. The first one being, if you were not considering the literal definition of humanity, but based on your own personal experience, how would you define humanity?
I would define humanity as being people who all want the same things. They want to be safe in their homes. They want to love. They want to be loved. They want to enjoy their children. They want to enjoy work. Work helps give you an identity. And the more people love what they do and feel like what they do matters and that their being here matters, it makes all the difference in the world. And I've been to, 27, 28 countries. It's that definition applies to everyone I have encountered. I was in Singapore many years ago, and they have a wonderful transportation system, and we were on this underground tram. And there was a Buddhist woman and a Hindu woman and a Christian woman and a Muslim woman, and they're all sitting right next to each other with their children on this tram. And I could not help but observe they all had to get home to make supper for their children. They were all taking care of their children, and they all loved their children. And I thought, that's me. I mean, I love my children. And you're always thinking, oh my gosh, what's for supper? The ordinariness of what every single person on earth goes through is, in an ironic way, what unites us. Don't you think?
Mm-hmm.
I just felt when I looked at those women that I realized that it doesn't matter what costume you wear, what country you're born in, what faith you're born in, that you have the experience of being in that faith or that race or that religion or that mindset or that family group or that what they call family constellation, for whatever the experience of it is going to be. But at the end of the day, some of the most mundane things are the same for all of us. You have to make a living. You have to feed yourself. You need an identity that gives you meaning and purpose. Mm-hmm. And you want to love and be loved. The issue of love is probably the largest uniter of all humanity.
Did you observe other areas where there was a lot of similarity?
I saw people proud of what they do, proud of some of the simplest things. I was actually in the Grand Cayman Islands last month. We had a family gathering, and I stopped by the side of the road, and they were selling these beautiful conch shells. And as I walked up to this little stand right on the beach, this man's daughter comes rushing out, and she starts hugging me. And I don't know, I'm a mom. I started kissing her. And the man looked at me, he said, she's very friendly. And I said, she's such a sweetheart. And I said, your shells are so beautiful. And he started talking to me about the process, and it was amazing. I live in Washington State, so it was great to be in the sunshine at the beach because we have a lot of great days up here. And I woke up one morning and we have heated floors and they didn't work. So we call the repair guy. He comes out. He loves what he does. He's really good at it. We were so grateful. And I look at my children. Each of them does something radically different, but they love what they do. My husband spent 42 years at sea. That's a long time at sea. Mm-hmm. Is the best mariner you ever met. My oldest son is the best mechanic you ever met. And I can go on and on. When you have an identity of who you are, it gives your life meaning and purpose, and it gives you a sense of self-respect. Mm-hmm. You can find that whether you're male or female, that identity means everything. And whatever your industry is, I love watching Project Runway. I'm looking at how creative people can be and how what they create defines them. Mm-hmm. We are all creators of something. Even if it's just managing an office, you're creating an environment that enables work to get done. So there is a creativity that's required when you do that. Those are just a few observations.
I love that your children all found their path somewhere and then they fell in love with what they do. Do you think that part of their humanity was influenced by observation, by observing their parents in addition to their surroundings, or was it more so like learned experience along the way?
I feel like some people come here, they come in and they know what they're going to do. My oldest son, I swear to God, he was born with a toy car in his hand. He just lives, breathes, and eats cars. And so our frame of reference with our children, because I'm a retired naval officer, so we brought our children up as if we were developing junior officers, so they could be responsible, they could be, have leadership, that they would be really good people that you would want to work with or have worked for you. Mm-hmm. I know that's an odd frame of reference, but at the end of the day, you got to make a living. Yeah. So our frame of reference was we got to choose, my husband and I, to be in the Navy. That was our choice. We want you to pick a profession that you love going to every day. We're not going to dictate to you. Mm-hmm. So our oldest son became a master mechanic for Rolls-Royce and BMW, and now he works up here. He can fix, you name it, he can fix it. It's just amazing. Our daughter she works in affordable housing. She is a vice president. I won't mention the company because I'm being... Yeah.
Let's not get sued.
President for debt and structured finance for affordable housing for this company that's just one of the largest companies in the country. Mm-hmm. She just did a deal that will take 1/3 of the homeless off the streets of Los Angeles.
That's amazing.
She has a mind for math, and she loves what she does. Our youngest son, who came to us at 17 because his family dynamics were very bad, is a senior master sergeant in the Air Force, and his whole focus has been leadership and how you bring good leadership to any organization, because we spent a lot of time discussing that. So we have 3 children in radically different fields. Mm-hmm. And when they get together, we have so much fun because they're happy in their relationships with their children and in their lives. Yeah. Which makes for less stress, very happy families. And I've been married almost 52 years. Amazing.
It is amazing. Isn't that crazy that it's now seen as something remarkable? And you're like, it's a marriage. You got married, you're married. Generations see it different. I didn't come into the marriage as a perfect human being. I had a lot to learn. I was 6 feet tall and now I'm 5'1". I went to the School of Hard Knocks. The joke went over my head. Height, life, taking off inches. Sorry, Tina, but I get it now. So funny.
That's a frame of reference from the point of view that when you're in the Navy, and I joined the Navy in 1972. You can tell I'm ancient. And in 1972, it was toward the end of the Vietnam War, which seems like another lifetime ago. And they didn't know what to do with women. And we were an anomaly. And my husband and I were one of the very first married Navy couples in the Navy. Because it used to be if you got married, you automatically had to get out. And literally from the time I was commissioned till my husband and I got married, which was only 9 months, the law changed. And I worked for the submarine force for 20 years, doing all kinds of interesting things. And then he was aboard submarines, and he had a submarine rescue ship, picked up part of Challenger, the O-ring that was bad on Challenger. I just felt like the Navy was a huge schoolhouse. And I watched men have to learn how to work with women, and women had to learn how to understand men.
I read something really interesting in your bio, and I kind of love that you went straight into the Navy. It was really interesting because you said that you observed various levels of humanity, both good and bad. I'm so interested to hear more about that.
I observed that you learn as much from terrible leadership as you do from wonderful leadership, because you have to learn what doesn't work. You have to learn what abuse in a leader, or a division officer, department head, the captain of an organization. It could be a CEO. They're interchangeable words. But whoever is in a leadership position, that energy of that person goes from the top down. And if you have a dictator in that position, the atmosphere is going to be horrendous. Everyone's always looking over their shoulder. And as an example, I took over as the officer in charge of a personal support detachment, and we had 150 ships, and shore stations were our customers. And we did all the personnel, all the travel. We paid 10,000 people every payday. And when I got there, I noticed that my yeoman would come in every half hour and tell me what time it was. I thought that was, said, why are you doing this? And he said, because your predecessor required that I come in every half hour to the minute and tell her what time it is. And I said, well, you know what? Just requisition a clock and put it over the door, and you have better things to do than run around and tell me what time it is. And he said, so do you also want me to sharpen pencils for you? And I said, no, I don't use pencils. I use pens. And so, no, I don't need you to do that. And then he came in one day and he said, you're nice to me. I said,
wow.
I'm treating you with courtesy.
Respect. Yeah.
And respect. You have a job to do. You're a second-class petty officer, and I would be abusing you to do that. And he said, well, I want you to know that I'm not on blood pressure medicine anymore. But my doctor says that I don't need it, that I'm calm now. And I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Yeah.
And he would start to tell me all these things that had happened. So I made it a point of interviewing 150 of my staff. We had women who got pregnant were on limited duty till they had their babies. They made arrangements, and then they would either go back to the ship or the shore station. These women went to hell and back for us. It was just remarkable. And one day, this Master Chief comes in and he says, all right, I have a new respect for women. I said, this ought to be really good. And he said, well, you know, Petty Officer so-and-so in dispersing? And I said, yes. He said, well, she was doing a check-in. She was checking in this new guy, getting all this information and getting his pay taken care of. Her water broke. She went into labor. She didn't leave her post until he was completely taken care of. She's got a puddle at her desk. And so she gets up and he watches her struggle into the bathroom, and he knocks on the door and he said, are you all right? And she said, no, I'm in labor. He drove her to the hospital, proud of her that he could help her. And he didn't ever complain about women again. Because I had people say, well, women, when they have babies, I said, I have 92 men on limited duty because of motorcycle accidents. Look, y'all, watch this, and you know how that goes.
Right.
It's a wonder that, why women live longer than men. So I said, but I only have 6 women on limited duty. That's very temporary. Some of these men will never go back to their ships. So let's look at this in a balance, not as a competition, but we are the same and we're different. Let's focus on each other's strengths. If you can create through really good management and leadership a sense of community, of belonging, people will not only just do their job, they will want to do their job better for you. And that was universal. I don't care where you are. If people respect you and listen on other levels, you can really help them. And then you can make a work environment that takes people off blood pressure medicine.
Yeah. Well, it seems that creating that community, but then also your humanity and compassion really spread to those people that worked with you and under you, because they're constantly looking to you for direction. But you have like just this amazing empathy that just radiates off of you. So I can see how that would affect them. And they'd be like, oh, let me consider someone else for once. And that guy, I'm sure he respected women for the rest of his life.
He did.
That's amazing.
He became a huge advocate. And that's why I'm a student of karma and studying how karma works. Because karma never wastes energy. Isn't that a cool concept? She's pregnant. She's going into labor at her desk. But she taught the guy she checked in a lesson. She taught a master chief petty officer, a grizzled old guy, a lesson.
Has anyone ever made you question their goodness? Like, have you ever met someone where you just can't find the goodness? Has anyone come across you like that?
Yes. I was the executive officer for a submarine training facility in San Diego, and I had 150 men work for me. And the captain told me, he said, we're going to bring this commander in to work for you, limited duty, because he has a TMJ, which is a problem with his jaw. And he's going to work for you. And I said, oh my God, please no. This is the most hated man on the waterfront. I mean, the Navy has a term for it, a bent shit can personality. They were actually worried. He was the XO on a fast attack submarine, and they were worried the crew was going to murder him.
Oh my gosh.
And they said, Commander Erwin, you get to have him work for you. It's like, oh no, what am I going to do? This man was so hated by the crew on the submarine, and he brought that with him. And he was so hated by the crew, by my crew, and when I took leave, he was the acting XO. And of course, the crew hated it. So, well, this man went in for surgery. And again, karma never wastes energy. I really love this story. And his senior chief came to me and said, this commander is terrified to go into surgery, and you need to talk to him. You do some magic, and you just have to talk to him. So I had him come to see me, and he refused. And I said, okay, it's a direct order. Come in and see me. So he sits down, and I said, tell me what the problem is. He said, I think I'm going to die in surgery. I said, okay, tell me what's going to happen. And he tells me this recurring dream. And I said, yes, but you don't die in the dream. It's just a terrifying dream. But you're really going to be all right. You're just afraid of losing control because you're going to be under anesthesia. But you're going to be all right. And I think what you really need is a hug. Now, can't have fraternization, but sure. I said, you really need someone to hug you. And so I hugged him, and I didn't think he would ever let go of me. I didn't realize his level of fear. And So I went to visit him in the hospital, and I made the wardroom send him a gift, and no one wanted to contribute. And I
Of course.
said, we have to do this because he is a member of the wardroom.
Right.
He said, all right. And he was so thrilled someone came to visit him.
Mm.
And then I made him, because he had a lot of problems when he was in the Navy hospital. I said, I have decided you're going to be the liaison officer for everyone using military medicine. He said, that's a horrible job. I said, I know, but I really think you can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of my senior chief petty officers' wife, she's this tiny little Filipino lady. She had gallbladder surgery and they nicked the bowel.
Oh.
And they accused this woman of being a wimp and not being able to take pain.
Mm.
So I sent this commander to represent the sailor. He's an enlisted man. He needs an advocate and his wife needs an advocate. And then I ripped the lungs out of the XO of the hospital. But then what happened was other people in the command started to go to them, and he started to care about the crew. He started to look forward to being their advocate. Well, as time went on, the hatred toward him began to dip.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a terrible situation. We had a sailor who had a relationship problem and he killed himself. We had a suicide. He had an ex-wife and two adorable little girls. I think they were like 4 and 8. And I made him the casualty assistance calls officer. And he said, you know, you should do this. And I said, no, I already know how to do it. You should do it. And you will do it. Mm-hmm. And I said, you're going to go to the widow or the ex-wife, and you're going to have to tell those little girls that their father has died. And you're going to take this chaplain, because he's the duty chaplain. But this chaplain is an idiot. And if this chaplain does these things, you are to fire him on the spot and take over. He said, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do this. I said, you have a doctorate degree. How hard can this be? He says, yes, but I'm not good with people. You're never going to be good with people if I don't push you into that role. Mm-hmm. And I want you to think, when you go in to talk to those little girls, if that chaplain starts to screw up, take over. Because what you say in that moment is going to echo in the heads of those girls for the rest of their lives. And I gave him a script of what he was to say. And I said, you're to put a kid on each of your knees, and you're going to have the mom sitting in front of you, and you're going to gently go through this process. And he did. And I heard back from several sailors that said that he did such an outstanding job that the ex-wife hugged him and thanked him for being so kind to her daughters. Mm-hmm. Well, time passed and everyone stopped hating him. And then he became the U.S. Defense Attaché in Turkey. Mm. He learned Turkish because he was just freaking brilliant.
Sure.
And the crew, of their own volition, threw him a going away party. And every single one of them thanked him, and they stood up. And I stood in the back of the room and just smiled and smiled and smiled, because he had never been loved by anyone like that. He had only known the hatred of crew members. But you have to earn respect. You have to earn admiration. You can't order it. The Navy was a massive schoolhouse and an opportunity. And he is one of my dearest friends to this day. And so people, can they change? Can a terrible, terrible person shift? Yes, they can. If you can help them, if they have enough personal insight, and maybe they would like to change. Maybe they don't know what love and compassion looks like. But military isn't always about following strict orders, equipment, and war. Mm-hmm. The military is about people helping people. these are some of the finest men, and now women can serve. I think many doors were opened over time. These are some of the finest men you'd ever hope to meet. Very dedicated, believe in this country, believe in what they do. I saw an awful lot of people have some remarkable opportunities for growth and leadership. I also observed the amount of psychic ability that was shown by men. You wouldn't expect it, but there are some men who literally saved entire crews of submarines because they had a gut feeling. And there's some really very interesting experiences that go with that.
Do you have an example that sticks out?
I have a couple of them, but this one is one of my very favorite examples. When my husband and I were first married, we lived in bachelor officer quarters in New London, Connecticut. And this happened in 1970, I think it was 1975. A fast attack submarine is out for months at a time, and a lot of times they do training. Off the east coast of the United States, there's a range called AUTEC, AUTEC, and they do a lot of training, and it runs, 1,000, 1,500 miles, and it parallels the east coast of the United States. So it's this giant trough. Well, the submarine is operating in the AUTEC, what's called the AUTEC range. And this guy is in his rack, and he wakes up, and he goes to his buddy because he's got to take the duty, and he says, I'm going to take the duty, 15 minutes early. And the guy says, oh, go back to bed. I got the watch. He says, no, I'm going to relieve you right now. He says, okay, I stand relieved. And this lieutenant turns to the watch and says, right full rudder, all back full now. And they were perpendicular to the trough instead of parallel. So that when the submarine hit the mountain, because he was all back full, it slowed it down, and he turned, and it was a glancing blow. He saved the lives of 150 men.
Wow.
Of course, he was court-martialed because, Navy has to have somebody to blame. But he was exonerated. And he was court-martialed because he didn't get permission to give rudder orders or navigation orders. Because I personally believe that a higher power was at work at that moment. And the captain and the navigator were, in fact, court-martialed for that. Because they did not have a correct fix on where they were. And they could have all died. And I saw the ship in the dry dock, and it looked like someone had taken the nose of that submarine and just punched it. It was jaw-dropping. HY80 steel, HY meaning high-yield steel. So, yeah, there was... I have another example if you have a minute.
Sure.
When I was working in Norfolk, Virginia as the assistant chief of staff for all this crazy security stuff, I had a lieutenant work for me. He was a big Texan. He had this white blonde crew cut and these giant blue eyes. And he didn't screen past the engineer's exam, so nobody knew what to do with him, so they gave him to me, and I had him be my liaison with the waterfront. Worked out really well. He did a really, really good job for me. I just thought the world of this guy. And he had orders to a diesel submarine in Naval Activities Japan in Yokosuka. Well, diesel submarines, that's not career enhancing, so he knew he was going to have to get out eventually. But he said, Commander, you have to get me out of these orders because something terrible's going to happen when I go to that ship. I just can't go. Something so bad is going to happen. And I believed him. And I used every silver bullet I had to get those orders changed. And I even talked to my 3-star admiral. I could not get those orders changed. I felt terrible because I really believed him. So he gets to the ship, and They are somewhere off the coast of Japan, and they are surfaced because a diesel submarine has to snorkel, exchange the air. You remember there's a lot of stories about World War II submarines. The submarine had to surface after a while. They're not a nuclear submarine. Can't stay down for. It's a flat, calm night. I mean, there's no moon. The sea is glass. So that so my lieutenant is in the sail of a submarine, where the conning tower, the top part. And they're looking out. And he has two guys on watch with him. The three of them, they're in the conning tower. So that when the rogue wave hit them, the submarine hatches were open and the wave drove them to the bottom.
Oh, wow.
And he figures that at the 40-foot level, he let go. He didn't think he would ever surface. It's a wine dark sea on a moonless night. And he finally pops up, but he's bleeding from his ears and from his eyes, from his nose because of the pressure. I can't even imagine how quickly that submarine went down. And the three worst things that can happen to a submarine is fire, flooding, and men overboard. They had 3 men overboard. They managed, I don't even know how, they managed to get the hatch closed. They put the fires out because everything shorted with the seawater, and they finally got that fires put out. They pumped the seawater overboard. They trimmed the ship. And what that means is the submarine's being propelled down, and they bring it to a place where they can level it off, and then they were able to get a message off to Naval Activities Japan, and they gave them a fix of where they last were and where they think they are now. 3 men were overboard. In the meantime, Dixie, my friend, he can't see anything. It's black, just blackness. And he's in a dark navy blue, what they call a poopy suit, like a jumper. And he's got all night to think. He's laying there in that water. He doesn't see the other 2 men. He doesn't hear them. He doesn't know what happened to them. Come daybreak, he hears the engine. It's a propeller plane. Well, in a propeller plane, you have the sound of the engines. Oh my gosh, they're deafening. And of course, the pilots have a headset on, right? Because they can listen with the radio. And they circle him, and they don't see him.
Oh, wow.
And they leave. A couple hours later, they come back. They still don't see him, and they leave. Well, now panic is beginning to really, you've been at this all night, all day, and he knows they'll probably come back one more time to the last fix, and they won't ever come back again, and he's going to die there. So he does something that we can only describe as a psychic scream. And he screams through his mind to the pilot, "Look down, I'm right here." The pilot heard him over the propellers and the headset, heard it loud and clear. And he looks down and he sees my lieutenant. And he does his wings. And he circles, they bring a chopper out, and they rescue this guy. In the meantime, I'm in Norfolk trying to figure out, we find out that there's been a submarine accident. We don't have anything. I go to his wife so she doesn't find out on CNN. That taken care of. So here is the epilogue. When he finally got back to Norfolk, he talked to me. He got out. He made a pact with God that if he was rescued, he would leave the Navy and become a pastor, and he did. Believed that God saved him for a higher calling. The other 2 men told their families that if they went to the ship, they were going to die there. They would never come home. They also tried to get out of their orders. They couldn't get out of them, and both men were never found. So all 3 men had what can only be described as a significant premonition. And they All three tried to get out of the orders. Two of them said they were going to die. One of them knew it would be bad.
Mm-hmm.
All of their premonitions came true. And, I've told this story many times, and I've thought about this over the years, that what do you do if you know something's coming and there's nothing you can do to stop it except the very best you can?
Mm-hmm.
And he was a really good guy who was in a bizarre set of circumstances. And I guess one of the questions that always puzzles me is, does the future already exist? It's like he already knew all of this was going to happen, but he didn't have anything specific.
Mm-hmm.
He went on, he kept his word to God, which I thought was really, really precious.
Mm-hmm.
And, the other families didn't even have someone to bury. Mm. And, when you're at sea in the Pacific, there's nobody going to find you.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like there are some military stories, or we all have a million of them.
Sure.
But I found so much goodness in the people that I worked with and who worked for me that I guess that's what I remember. Did I have bad days?
Sure.
Yeah, I had bad days at work.
Right.
But overall, I was grateful every day for the opportunities I was given and the men I got to work with.
If you had a message for humanity, maybe what you think they could do better or what we're lacking, what would you tell them?
I would offer a concept when you're working with someone or listening, or when you're working with someone or they're working for you, take a little extra time to listen. If it's your child, your neighbor, your spouse, a parent, a sibling, take a little extra time and really listen with your heart, not necessarily the agenda you think you have. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes when you listen on another level, you will get a whole other, shall we say, doorway of information that will enable you to be better at helping them with what they need, which will enable them to truly be there for you, whether it's a job or a relative, a friend or a neighbor. Be compassionate. Give them the care and compassion you would want for yourself as much as you possibly can.
That's good advice. I'm so impressed by your life experience. You're not ancient, by the way. I don't think you're ancient. I love people with life experience, but I love hearing their stories because they're still resonant now, just as they were then. And we could learn so much just by listening. And thank you for your amazing service. And you are incredible.